What is going on, everybody? Welcome into another emergency edition of a live stream here on the channel. The last one coming just a few weeks ago after the Oakland game. I felt like we had to hop on and talk then. And with everything that's happened in the past, 18 hours, it seemed like we need to do it again. But of course, as always, thank you guys for coming on. We already have a ton of people in here. So thank you guys for being ready, tuning in immediately. That's awesome. If you're not already, or if you're new here, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel, of course. Obviously, everything's about to move really fast. Stuff's going to happen. It's not going to take more than a week or so to get all this sorted out. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss out on any of that. Like I said, news is just going to keep coming in. I'm going to do my best to put as much out there as I can. So like I said, if you're not already, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. The button is right below. Follow me on Twitter as well at Wildcat Cave BBN. Pretty easy to find. Same logo that you see here on this channel. So follow me here. Follow me there. I'm on TikTok as well. Same thing. Make sure you are subscribed and ready to go. And now, with all of that out of the way, we will move on to why everybody's here today to talk about the eclipse. It was pretty cloudy. Got to see a little bit of it. Obviously, here in Kentucky, it wasn't a full eclipse. But it was still pretty cool to watch. But obviously, that's a joke, guys. The eclipse was cool. I did see it. I hope you guys all saw it. But we're really here to talk about John Calipari. I don't know how you guys found out, but for me personally, I was off my phone most of last night. I was laying in bed on TikTok, and I was scrolling, and I was like, well, it's about that time to go to bed. If the next TikTok sucks, then I'm hanging my phone up and going to sleep. And the very next TikTok that came through for me, was ESPN showing that John Calipari had went to Arkansas. I was skeptical, but it was ESPN. So, of course, I hopped online, found some stuff, and then it turned out to be true. So, a pretty crazy way to find out at midnight. I was up to about 1:30, scrolling, trying to find out as much information as I could, texting people. So pretty crazy. And then all I've done today, I was off work, so I've spent the past 12 hours just absorbing as much information as I could, trying to get as much stuff ready for this, info, details, everything. But we have some comments. Before I get into what I think, let's read some of your comments. Could Coach Cal be back? Well, it depends on who you ask. I wasn't going to start with this, but since you brought it up, we'll talk about it. There's been rumors all day of why hasn't Arkansas announced it? Why hasn't Kentucky made an announcement? It said the players didn't know this morning, and it seemed it was all just like very under the radar, apparently, that all this happened. And then there's been, like I said, conspiracy theories out there online all day of why wasn't it announced? Why did the meeting at Cal's house get canceled? The WKYT thing where they caught him walking his dogs and he had no comment. It's all very strange if he's not going. He obviously hasn't put out anything saying he's going. Arkansas hasn't put out anything saying that he's coming. So it is a very weird situation. And like I said, if you pay for some services, there's some info there that says that he may or may not be wanting to come back. What's happening? We don't know. It seems like a lot of you guys are kind of saying the same thing. But yeah, it's going to be crazy. There's rumors that he wants to come back, that he's trying to come back. But if all the talk was true that he did negotiate with Arkansas and come up with this 5-year, whatever $1 million deal, then that voids his contract with Kentucky. So he can be fired for cause, and Kentucky's still out of the $33 million buyout they don't have to pay. And if that's the case, then, let's pretend Cal does want to come back. What do you do? I mean, because he's still your coach. If he didn't breach the contract, you owe him the money. If he did breach it, then do you bring him back anyway? Because it's pretty bad right now. I mean, it's a bad look that all this happened to start with. And then you add that, now he's wanting to come back here. And I don't know, man. That's a crazy situation. And we'll continue to touch on it, as we talk about all of this. There's already a ton of comments. You guys know I try to read every single one of them. But I got a feeling this is going to be the one of the shows where I don't get to every single comment. It is absolute chaos. Again, absolute chaos. Cal could be back. Let's see. Why would John leave $33 million? Well, part of that is, number one, I think Arkansas promised a ton of NIL money. I think they might have offered him more money than Kentucky's paying him per year just for a shorter term. So it's not like he's leaving $33 million out there. I would assume over the 5 years, they would at least match what Kentucky's paying him and then have more NIL and all that fun stuff. So I don't think he's walking away from $33 million. The only thing he'd really be walking away from in this would be that $1 million ambassadorship or whatever, that he has in his contract. Maybe Cal is back. Like I said, we're going to touch on that kind of throughout the night, but there's a lot of rumors and a lot of weird coincidences that's been at least going around online, but you guys know how that is. Players are entering the portal. That's a good point. Bradshaw, I think, was always entering the portal. A dude posted on his Instagram that he was leaving Lexington. Carter Knox decommitted. So there's a bunch of stuff that would point. I mean, honestly, it's one of those things where if you wanted to make the case that Cal's leaving, there's plenty of evidence for that. And there's plenty of evidence, circumstantial evidence you could piece together to make the argument that he's not quite coming. It would be a violation of his contract if he interviewed and didn't tell Kentucky. That is true. That would get Kentucky out of the buyout. And then that leaves Cal in a weird spot because if he tries to come back, then what does Arkansas think? Like, oh, this dude doesn't want to be here. And then Kentucky's like, well, hell no, you done left. Why are you coming back now? Like, that ain't going to work. So it might put Cal in a really weird spot where he has to beg to go to Arkansas all of a sudden, but I don't know. Like I said, we'll touch on that throughout. Goodness, there's so many comments I can't keep up. Okay, let's see. He is gone and ready to move on. Last night when I saw the TikTok and then when I looked into it a little bit, I was initially fairly sad. I was like, man, it's really over. Like, this era that I've lived since I was 14 has come to an end, and it was great and it didn't end well. But I think at this point we can all move forward and it'd be better for everybody. And if he comes back, or if it's anything other than that now, it's just going to be a mess. So I do think whatever happens, I don't think Cal can come back. Let me know what you guys think. I just don't think he can. Not after all that's came out. Like, whether he accepted the job or not, there was too much smoke to not be at least a spark or a flame somewhere. You know what I mean? So that's just a ton of stuff to come out if you're really trying to get back in Kentucky's good graces. But I guess, time will tell. So let's see. Who do I personally want? We will get to that. The athletic director cannot lose the fans. That's a fact. We're not close to losing the fans, I don't think, especially if we hire somebody. Do you think Carter Knox will be back? No. There is a recruit who we may talk about that I think has a chance to come, whether Cal's here or not. He's probably upset with the last loss and Mitch asked him to change. Well, yeah, I think there's definitely the sentiment out there that Cal didn't realize how bad it was, and the school didn't realize how bad it was with the fans. And then when they kind of found out, it might have weighed on Cal, and he was like, holy hell, I need to get out of here while I can. This on top of the Stoops to A&M rumors we had to deal with a few months ago. It's kind of like I kind of forgot about that, but that is a really odd, parallel there. Has a lot of that vibe to it, except I think this one might be real. I think Cal might actually be gone, and Stoops obviously is not. Let's see. Oh, man. Okay. Oh, Lord. There's a lot of comments here to read. I love you guys, but I'm not going to be able to get to all those. I'm just going to have to talk. Okay. So how do we feel? Let's start with the general time of the Calipari era here. My personal opinion, if he is gone, we're going to assume he's gone unless stated otherwise. I think we all look back in 5 to 10 years and say, what a success that Calipari's era was. He had 10 years that is arguably the best 10 of any Kentucky coach. I don't think that's arguable. 4 Final Fours in 5 years, the 38-1 team, all sorts of just accolades and NBA picks and success everywhere. So I don't think that can be argued. Now, of course, since COVID, it hasn't been that. It just hasn't. And that's okay. But overall, I think we all feel I think now is the right time. And I said this immediately after the Oakland loss. Now is the time to make the move if you're going to do it, because you can't go into next season with the toxicity and the pressure and just the scrutiny of every game being life or death, especially for the recruits, but for Cal too, because we saw how he was after Auburn with the "did you see what I did" and all of that stuff. So now's the time. Like, we can separate ways now and everybody benefit. Arkansas, while I do think it's weird, like that's not where I would have seen Cal going. But I think it's a place he can be successful. The money will be there. The fans will be excited. It's a great basketball environment. So it's great for a guy like Cal. And then for Kentucky, there's names out there that get you excited. Most of the fans were ready to move on anyway. So I don't see, this is one of the rare situations in which a split might work best for both parties. And that's just something you don't see all the time. Especially in the coaching business. You see, coaches stink and then they get fired. That's normally what you see. And this got Kentucky out of the $33 million buyout. It put Cal in a great spot. It frees up Kentucky financially to try to hit a home run here. And it really just seems like this is the time. And if it's not, and all of this was a big cluster, then I don't know, man. I think there was enough going on into next year with Cal here that was going to make it bad. And then you add like he leaves and then comes back, like the Stoops thing on top of it. Man, that would make for a crazy next season. One thing I do want to say, and everybody just needs to brace themselves for this, is Calipari, again, assuming he is going to Arkansas, he is going to be successful. So everybody just get ready for that. He's going to get recruits. He's going to get transfers. He's going to go in. He's going to wear a suit and tie. And he's going to coach as hard as he's coached since 2009. Like, that dude is going to go in there with a brand new fire. And he is going to just do everything he can to put Arkansas on the map and show Kentucky what they lost. Like, that's just going to happen. And he might be better than us next year if he goes. So everybody just brace yourself for that. Like, it doesn't mean that this is the wrong move or we shouldn't get rid of Cal or anything like that. Just brace yourself that is a very real possibility that he goes to Arkansas and just crushes it and maybe even comes to Rupp next year and beats us, depending on who we hire and how things shake out. All right, I'm going to try to get a little bit more comments in here. I think my mouse is dying, which stinks because I don't have a quick way to change the batteries in it, but that's all right. We'll do it the old-fashioned way. All right, let's see. It would never happen, but imagine Drew Joyce. Okay. Brian Brown, Bruce Pearl has had 2 seed, a 3 seed, and another good team and lost early in the tournament in the last 3 years. That's true. He also has a Final Four. What's up? Barnhart has a lot of work on his hands. Jaden seems to be like he's staying at UK and Travis Perry and hope someone else stays. Carter Knox is definitely gone. Yeah, so Jaden Quaintance, he's the 16-year-old, has 2 years in college, no matter what, can't declare for the draft after his first year. The only 5-star recruit Kentucky had coming in next year. We had a bunch of 4s, depending on the recruiting service you look at. But Jaden Quaintance is definitely the dude. There's reports out there. And of course, it's not confirmed. He himself didn't come out and say, I'm going to Kentucky with or without Cal. But he is the recruit that the rumors online are saying would potentially come back. We'll see. We'll end up seeing how true that is. I don't know. Time will tell on that deal. Let's see. Whoever the new coach is, Kentucky fan base needs to understand they need time to rebuild. Can't expect perfection in the first year. Yes and no. It's going to be a transition period, no doubt. Like, I don't expect to go win the championship next year if Cal's not here. But with the transfer portal, with the NIL, one thing that I don't know how many people are talking about, the NIL opportunities that are about to open up, Cal alienated a lot of our biggest boosters and donors and stuff. So if he's gone and when he's gone, all of those people are right back in the fold and they want to donate money. So NIL opportunity, oddly enough, may go up with Cal gone. So between that, if you get a coach that can really hammer the transfer portal, then you have no reason not to make a tournament, not to be a second weekend team next year. And not to mention, like, we'll get into that. What I was about to say, we'll get into here in just a minute. It might be the next topic I got here anyway. Anyway, like I said, Cal's going to be successful at Arkansas if that's where he goes, is my opinion personally. Anyway, the next question on the table is, do you trust Mitch to make the right hire? Because while he has made some good hires, they haven't been all great. So you got let's go through some of Mitch's hires. He came in the Tubby Smith era, hired Billy G. That was a flop. After Billy G, you obviously get Cal, great hire. Despite the last 5 years, like I said, overall amazing hire, arguably first or second best coach in UK history. So great hire there. And then you have I believe he did hire Matthew Mitchell, pretty good hire. I don't know who was here before that. Kyra Elzy, dud. And then Kenny Brooks looks like a great women's basketball coach. The baseball coach before Mingione was bad, and Mingione was really bad up until the past 2 seasons. So whatever you think about that. So Mitch only has about a 50% track record of really getting good hires. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, he's had some really, really home run hires. He also hired Joker Phillips. So not a great choice there either, Mitch. But then you hire Mark Stoops, and it's all worked out pretty well. So this is a hire. I mean, Kentucky basketball, if there's one thing I think that kind of overarches this entire thing, we've all kind of realized that Kentucky basketball is bigger than John Calipari, and it always will be. But this hire, we can't afford to have a bad hire here. You know, we can't have these 4 years of no success and then another hire of 2 or 3 years of just worse. Like, hold on, I'm going to turn these lights down. I'm starting to get a little washed out in here. But, yeah, I see the comments about, Cal trying to find a way to stay. I think that ship has sailed. Like, he can't come back now. But anyway, I don't know if I trust Mitch. I mean, like I said, he just made a great hire with Kenny Brooks. So that gives you hope. But what are the options out there? Can Mitch really, truly conduct the nationwide search and not just hire his buddy down in Baylor? Like, I don't know. What do you guys think? Put it in the comments here and let me know. It's going to be really interesting to see what Mitch does here. And we've made it a third of the way through this thing, and cheers. It's a double shot kind of night. There's been too much going on to have a single bourbon. All right, let's see. On a different note, yes, I'm definitely getting a new college football game. Absolutely, and that's supposed to come out in July, hopefully. All right, let's see. So let's go ahead and talk about candidates. I've talked enough about the what-ifs. Here's the hot names on the board. This would be my list. Obviously, there's some names that's not on this list that you would consider. The Jay Wrights, the Brad Stevens, your pie in the sky, your swing, and hopefully you hit a home run hires like that. Here's my call. If I'm Mitch Barnhart, obviously make Jay Wright and Brad Stevens tell you no. Like, we get that. But when they do tell you no, here's who you go to. Number one, the guy who's coaching tonight in Dan Hurley. The dude has won now, 11 straight postseason games, not counting their conference championship, just NCAA tournament games. He is heads and shoulders above everybody else in college basketball. By far the best coach in college basketball. Now, up until recently, like many of you, I'm sure, you would say that this guy's not leaving UConn. And I was on that boat up until like the past 24 hours. Why would this dude leave UConn? Let's think about it. UConn, he hasn't made. He's the king. He's a Northeast dude. He has that Northeast arrogance. He runs that program. He is that program, at least recently. He has the potential tonight to win back-to-back championships, which is something that almost never happens in college basketball. And he gets whatever he wants up there. And he's not under the Kentucky microscope of being criticized every other play call. So why would he leave? Well, number one, he gets paid $5 million a year. Kentucky can almost triple that. We just got out of a $33 million buyout. We have money. We can almost triple his yearly salary, which in of itself is enough to, maybe make anybody leave. If you told me I could triple my salary and all I got to do is put up a little criticism, knowing and it's something to keep in mind, these coaches are arrogant, all of them. All the successful ones are arrogant and cocky. they think that, they could just put out hell with a squirt gun. Like, these dudes are the most like self-absorbed, arrogant people. Like, they see no wrong in what they do. So if you're telling me that Dan Hurley thinks that he's going to come to Kentucky and just crumble, you're wrong. Like, he would, in his mind, he believes he could go anywhere in the country and be the best coach. And that may be true. And if you're telling me all I got to do is take a little bit of criticism every now and then at Kentucky and triple my salary, then I'm in. And not to mention, him specifically, but those types of dudes want to be the best, but they want to be the best at the best on top of the world. Like, he doesn't want to be king of the playground. He wants to run the school. Like, he wants to be the guy in all of the country. And there's reports that he wants to be that guy in the NBA too. So what better place to make your case than Kentucky? Like, UConn's great, and a lot of people consider them a blue blood, but a lot of people don't also. So Kentucky being the program that they are, say what you want about UConn. Yeah, they've probably been the best program of the last 25 years, but they're not Kentucky, and they're not Duke, and they're not Carolina, and they're not Kansas. They're UConn. There's maybe half a step, but still below those schools. So he would definitely take the call. Anyone who says otherwise, I think, is wrong. Now, whether he comes here or not, I guess that comes down to how much does he really like UConn, how much are they willing to match what Kentucky offers, all that fun stuff. But do not count out Dan Hurley, in my opinion. Again, he's my number one hire. I think he's probably most of your guys' hire. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying it's even likely to happen. I probably give it a 40% chance of happening, like less than half. But it's there. And if you can get him, if you're Mitch, like I said, don't go hire your best friend, Mitch. Swing for the fences. Start at the top and make every one of them tell you no. Like, Scott Drew should be your last hire. Like, if we get that, if we go any lower than that, we've screwed up and we're not holding ourselves to the Kentucky standard. And if you do hire Scott Drew, we'll talk about him in a minute. Number two, in my opinion, of who I would call is Billy Donovan. Been out of the college game a while, hasn't been in it since NIL and the portal. So that's a learning curve. He's got to be able to conquer that, and he's got to be able to conquer it now. He's obviously in the NBA right now. Again, like Hurley, reports out there that he would take the phone call, something he hasn't been willing to do in the past. He's willing to take that phone call and hear what Kentucky has to say. Again, another guy that I don't know if we get him. Probably don't get him. I think Billy Donovan might be a little less likely than Dan Hurley, but you still make the phone call. Because if the reports that are out there that he's considering it are even halfway true, you have to call, you have to offer, assuming Dan Hurley says no. So my number two is Billy Donovan. Obviously a great college coach. The Florida court is named after him. Back-to-back titles. Funny how my top two both could have back-to-back titles here in about 5 hours. So, yeah. Billy Donovan, he is going to be more expensive than Dan Hurley. Dan Hurley's buyout's not crazy at all. Billy Donovan's is. You got to pay him a ton of money to get out of the NBA, but he seems to at least be open to it. So if Dan Hurley tells you no, let's go for it. Number three is Nate Oates. This seems like the first, like, if you call he's coming type hires. Everyone from kind of Nate Oates down, I think, would have at least a really good chance of coming here. So I have been, if you watch this channel, you know I'm fairly critical of Nate Oates. I never really believed that he would be the guy here. I didn't think him and Mitch would ever see eye to eye. He'd never really won anything, kind of hasn't, but like kind of has. But with his run to the Final Four this year, the thing about his run that makes it a little different, like he hasn't won a championship, obviously, but he built essentially the team Kentucky had, like offensive-minded threes, no defense whatsoever until apparently he gets in the tournament and just lights the defense up. But he's like your first real hire. He seems to be like the first dude that's like, attainable. His buyout is fairly big, but like I said, Kentucky just saved $33 million. So we can afford to go get Nate Oates if we want to go get Nate Oates. And again, I don't see a world. It doesn't matter what Alabama matches. I don't see a world where Kentucky calls Nate Oates and he goes, I'm good. No thanks. His personality fits. I've always thought he had a very harsh personality, but maybe he's one of those guys that you love him when he's yours and you hate him when he's not, like Hunter Dickinson and Grayson Allen. Like maybe he's just that coach where if he's your coach, he's the best coach in the world, and if not, then you probably hate him. But that's probably how a lot of people feel about Cal, especially early Cal. So it seems like he has the personality and he has the all of that stuff. Obviously, he has the Final Four under his belt now, so he's shown he can make a run. He's a big analytics guy, which is good. A lot of the fans like that. And I think he's at least a hire that the fans would rally behind and, really support, unlike probably some of the people that I'm about to mention. Number 4 is Scott Drew. I think for the past 3 years, that's, oh, hold on. We got some news, it looks like, in here. Cal will be introduced tomorrow as head coach at Arkansas, according to Matt Jones. Just in from Matt Jones, Cal's officially gone. Okay, well, there it is then. So I guess that whole conspiracy theory thing we talked about earlier was nothing more than that, and he is officially going to be gone. Calipari is no longer the coach. Breaking news on the live stream yet again. So, yeah, not that it's breaking news. I mean, we all kind of knew that, but then there was rumors right before we hopped on here. So Calipari is officially gone, and like I said, ticking down here at the bottom are the people I would want. I am going to take another drink because that news deserves another drink. Cheers. Rainmaker, buddy, all you've done is post negative comments. If you don't believe me or you don't like me, then go. I mean, you ain't got to watch. It's all good. But anyway, so yeah, number 4 is Scott Drew. Scott Drew is the dude for the past 3 years that's been at the top of Mitch Barnhart's list. I see someone just said Mark Few. If Dan Hurley's not leaving UConn, Mark Few ain't leaving Gonzaga. And then with the DUI and stuff that he's had, I don't think that's really a thing. But either way, got a Woo Pig Suey in here. Arkansas, no joke. You guys are going to get Cal at his best. So congratulations. You guys got a great coach, obviously a Hall of Famer. I think, like I said earlier, this is a best case scenario maybe for both sides. So, I hope you guys lose every game, but you guys do have a great coach. So anyway, Scott Drew, like I said, Mitch Barnhart's friend, always been top of the list. Personally, I don't know. I mean, you see stuff both ways. Mitch Barnhart loves Scott Drew. They align politically. They align ideologically. So what do you? I mean, is he the? I think if you hire him, at least half of the fans are like, "Yay!" As to where if you hire any of my top 3, these like BBN is back. We're letting everybody know about it. But if you hire Scott Drew, everybody's like, "Yeah, it's a good hire. He's done a good job at Baylor. He's won a title during COVID, but he's also lost in the first weekend 7 out of the last 10 years. So does that really get you all sorts of excited? Not personally. I mean, I wouldn't be upset with the hire. If they announced Scott Drew tomorrow, I would be like, Christopher, you said Scott Drew is Tubby with no title. He does have a title, but it was the COVID title, and he doesn't really, like I was just saying, he's lost like 7 out of 10 years in the past 10 in the first round. So or the first weekend anyway. So that's what we're running Cal out of town for. So why in the world would, we want the guy who also does that? Now, of course, Baylor's a much harder job in terms of recruiting and winning. And he took it over when one player murdered another player and, they were on the verge of the death penalty. So, he can definitely build a program. He's definitely a good coach. But to me, like I said, these other names that are out there are just such big splashes. And that's what Big Blue Nation needs right now. And Scott Drew just isn't that. He's just not that. Rainmaker says he wants to know what I'm drinking. Nob Hill, Woodford. It is Woodford. Tonight is Woodford. I thought about busting open a really expensive bottle for this one. I just wasn't ready to. I got a Blanton's over there. I got a limited edition Maker's Mark and some other stuff. But I stuck with the Woodford tonight. It's good. And then Kentucky Blues fan says, you're excited for a new era. I am too. like I said, initially, and I said this immediately after the Oakland game, and even in my video following that, asking the question, is it time to get rid of Cal? I kept saying, like, I'm going to be sad when this happens, whether it's this year or any other year. And I am, and I was. Like I said, Cal's been the coach since I was 14. Joseph, it's good seeing you too. I see your comment, man. But Cal's been the coach since I was 14. And, from 14 to 24, the best stretch of Kentucky basketball that I may ever see in my lifetime. But from 24 to 28 today, like, it's not been that great. It might be the worst stretch I'll ever see. So it's going to be a weird experience. Overall, like I said, I think Kentucky always is going to look back at Cal with this separation being how it played out. They're going to look back fondly. Had it went another year or two of the same, that could change, and that's not what you want. One of the best coaches ever turns into one of your, you don't like him, kind of like a Rick thing. And so I do think this was maybe best case scenario for both parties. Cal gets what he wants in a fresh start, and Kentucky gets excited for a new hire, hopefully a good hire, Mitch Barnhart. Hopefully a big splash, throw the bank at people, and make them tell you no. And then we never even talked about Bruce Pearl. Bruce Pearl's basically been applying for this job ever since he got to Auburn. This is Bruce Pearl would crawl here on his hands and knees if Mitch said that was the only way he gets this job. Like, Bruce Pearl would do anything in the world to coach Kentucky. And while I don't think that's really going to happen, I don't think Bruce Pearl has a real chance at it. It's not a hire that I would argue Bruce Pearl gets the fan base more excited than Scott Drew does. I just don't think Scott Drew just has no personality, man. It's like you just hired a CPA to come be your coach. That doesn't get anybody excited. All that does is just add boring to the program, and that's not what Kentucky is. I said it in my last video. Kentucky is the glitz and the glamour and the bright lights and the star power and the celebrities. Like, that's who Kentucky is. That's not every program, and that's fine. You take Scott Drew and you put him at Duke or you put him at Kansas, you're probably okay. But that's not Kentucky. Kentucky is the wow program, the marquee, neon sign program. So I just don't think Scott Drew fits that bill. But Bruce Pearl, in terms of personality, does. And for whatever if you don't like Nate Oates, you got Nate Oates Jr. right there in Bruce Pearl. One Final Four, a couple SEC wins since Kentucky's last one. So there's plenty there. I don't know if he's the most qualified to be the coach of Kentucky, but if you think Nate Oates is outside of style of play, there's an argument to be made that Bruce Pearl is. So I put him in my top 5. Why not throw him at 5? I like Bruce Pearl. I think it'd be weird seeing him on Kentucky just screaming and sweating all over the place. But I don't see, why not? And then before we get into the guys I wouldn't hire and all that other stuff, I'd like to do some comments because, like I said, I've skipped 95% of them. So keep putting stuff in the comments section over here. I'm just going to scroll back a little bit and go through. Oh, let's see. It would be funny if UK called Musselman. I think there's exactly, number one, he signed with USC. But there's exactly a 0% chance that happens. Let's see. More news. Mitch Barnhart reportedly will offer Dan Hurley a deal he can't refuse, according to sources around Barnhart. Let's go. Let's go. Listen, again, I love Cal. I wish it never came to this. I wish he would have been the coach until I died, assuming all goes well. But in the situation we're in, if a split is going to happen, if you can get Dan Hurley, who is probably going to win another championship here in 4 hours, let's go. That, you couldn't do better. I mean, maybe you say Jay Wright or Billy Donovan or Brad Stevens, but Dan Hurley gets me just as excited as any of those dudes. So I hope you're right that he is going to offer. I mean, we got one lifetime contract. Let's do it again. Run it back. Let's go, Dan. Get in here, buddy. You can be the ambassador. All right, let's keep going with some comments. I think Pitino would be motivated. Dude, do not say Rick Pitino or Richard Pitino for that matter. Absolutely not. Listen, Rick has grown on me in the past year or two, but not that much. Not nearly enough to bring Not enough to bring him back. Not as the coach. First off, the dude's a walking skeleton. Like, that dude is 95 years old. I know he had a good run in the 90s. No, he has too much baggage, too much scandal, too much hate from at least a good majority or a good portion of the fan base. So please, not Rick Pitino. Well, first off, I don't have to say please. It's not happening, but not Rick Pitino. Bruce Pearl's better than the majority of them. Depends. I mean, majority of the people I mentioned, the majority of the coaches. Because if it's the people I mentioned, I would disagree. Majority of the coaches, yeah, I would agree with that. Let's see. You want a no-shot candidate? Coach K was listed at plus 5,000 odds. What? Real question. What would you guys think? Like, let's pretend Coach K does come. Like, what in the world? What do you do with that? Like, on one hand, you get the greatest coach ever, and on the other hand, he was the coach at Duke, and that's not cool. I think you kind of have no choice but to be excited, maybe, but are you happy about it? I mean, it'd be funny to kind of stick it to Duke like that, but I don't know. That'd be crazy. Let's see. Most spoiled comments I've ever heard from a fan. Kid, you are nuts if you think the last 4 seasons is the worst you may ever see. That's a crazy comment. Is it, though? Like, outside of our probation era, before I was born, name a time when Kentucky was worse for that amount of time. The worst record in school history, the worst loss in school history in the tournament. Then you lose to Kansas State, which isn't the worst loss ever, but just a very disappointing year. And then Oakland, who it might be the second worst tournament loss in school history. Couple that on top of one SEC tournament win, no SEC title since 2018. Like, what do you mean that's a crazy comment? That is the worst stretch of Kentucky basketball since I've been alive for that amount of time. I mean, Billy G won games in the SEC tournament, and he was a bad coach. So, yeah, I do think that was the worst stretch, at least I have seen. Now, hopefully I got a lot of life ahead of me, and who knows what will happen then. But if it hasn't happened since whenever Sutton was here, 70s, 80s, then why would I assume that it's just going to happen again when it's only happened twice in UK history? Like, that's not a crazy comment. This might be the worst stretch of Kentucky basketball not cheating. I don't doubt Pitino's still a good coach. Definitely not getting 2 titles in 5 years, but he's definitely a good coach. Like, there's no denying that, but I don't want him here. I don't want him here. Cal had all the personality, and look how that played out the last 6 to 8 years. Pearl's a cheater at Tennessee and Auburn. He doesn't deserve the UK job. That is something that nobody talks about. Bruce Pearl has a lot of rumors about him cheating at Auburn that just kind of get swept under the rug. Nothing major, but spying on practices and stuff. And I wouldn't say the last 6 to 8 years. I would say the last 4 to 5, 3 to 4 have been pretty bad. But the first 10, we can't just overlook the first 10. I mean, the first 10, like I said, might have been the best in Kentucky history, outside of maybe Rupp. But since then, there's a good chance this is the best stretch of Kentucky basketball possibly ever. 4 Final Fours in 5 years, a title, almost an undefeated team, just unprecedented success, SEC championships left and right. We can't just overlook that part. So, yeah, I sort of disagree, I guess. You think Pitino would do it in a heartbeat? He can recruit. He can use the portal. They will win and compete. Again, good coach. No thanks. I'll pass. And Mitch would never do it. Gets up at 4 a.m. every day. Let's see. 4 SEC championships in 6 years. I assume you're talking about Bruce Pearl. He kind of is, though. I mean, they have similar resumes. Oates has kind of owned the SEC recently, and Bruce Pearl did for a few years. They both have 1 Final Four, no championships. They have a similar resume, honestly, a similar personality. Health of a 45-year-old. Hey, if you say, them strippers will do that to you, man. They'll keep you young. Okay. That was a fake account that said that about Hurley. Come on, guys. Well, maybe it was. I don't know. Like I said, I'm obviously on here. I'm not personally out seeing this information. Maybe it was a fake account, but the sentiment remains. If you're Mitch, you should go make Dan Hurley an offer that he can't refuse. Go Godfather on him. He's a Northeastern dude. He'll love it. Just, Sit down with your cat. When he walks into your office, spin around in the chair and, do the whole Godfather thing. Just get Dan Hurley to Kentucky. Is there any chance that the USF coach could get in the running? They were horrible before he showed up. I couldn't tell you the name of the USF coach. Not that I am making the hire, but I would doubt it. If it's a name I've never heard of, probably not a great hire for Kentucky, at least. Maybe at a place like anywhere else, just about. But I feel like if it's not a household name, probably not the dude for Kentucky. I do think it was a fake account. Well, like I said, it stands. $12 million may do it. I agree. I do think he would win. I definitely think Pitino would win. I don't know if he's winning a championship, but the dude can coach. I mean, 100% can coach. I just don't know, like I said, if he's I know he's not the guy. He's not the guy. Quit trying to talk me into Rick Pitino. Hurley would be one for a small chance of that. Brad Stevens would be great. No way. Pitino would be anywhere close to what he was here. He's dismantled Louisville single-handedly. That he did. All right, let's see. Pitino. Would you all quit talking about Pitino? I'm trying to talk about anything other than Rick Pitino, and all you guys want to do is talk about Rick freaking Pitino. Lord, okay. Here we go. We're just going to get back into it because I'm sick of seeing Rick Pitino's name on here. All right, here is my names to avoid. Here are the people I think you should not hire, and I should have put Rick Pitino on this list, but I did not think there would be this many people advocating for him. So, number 1, Tommy Lloyd, Arizona. They've been good, flamed out every year in the tournament, haven't had any real success. I don't think he's the worst person on this list. I definitely don't think he's the best option out there. If you get to anyone on this list, we have screwed up and we're not holding ourselves to the Kentucky standard. I do think he's a good coach, but you got to win something. You can't lose to Princeton and then what they lose in the Elite Eight this year. You got to get to a Final Four, and he just hasn't. He's had a good enough program to do it. He's had the talent to do it, and he's just not. So until he really does something, and like I said, I think it's going to be too little too late. Timing plays a factor in all this. Had this happened last year, Nate Oates isn't in the – he's not – had this happened a month ago, Nate Oates isn't in the running for this, but he is now. So timing matters. We can't just bet on potential. We're Kentucky basketball. We go out and we get the best coach available. And Tommy Lloyd is just not it. TJ Otzelberger, he's Iowa State. They had a really good team this year. Got beat by a lower seed in the tournament. In the Sweet 16 they lost to Illinois. So again, no real tournament resume. He builds good teams. But if you thought the past few years was boring, not this year, obviously, but the past few teams under Cal with Oscar were boring, God, go watch Iowa State. They just pound the ball inside. Nobody wants to watch that. No, thank you. Pass on TJ Otzelberger. Brad Underwood at Illinois does play a fun style, but again, no real success in the Elite Eight this year, and kind of underwhelming every other year leading up to it. Not to mention the Terrence Shannon stuff and all the off-court stuff that he had to deal with. I don't know the behind the scenes of how he handled any of that. Who knows, honestly. But because of that, I don't think he gets a look. And then Mark Pope, just because he's a Kentucky guy does not mean you should hire him. Same with Travis Ford. Don't go hire these guys just because they went to Kentucky. Now, if it's Dan Hurley and a Kentucky coach and they have identical resumes, maybe you give the nod to the Kentucky guy. But Mark Pope and all these other guys that went here that coach just haven't put out, they're not on the level of anybody else. BYU had a few good wins this year and then crap the bed in the tournament, and there's no real success behind Mark Pope. Maybe he can coach. Maybe all of these guys are great. They probably all are great coaches, but they're not Kentucky great, and there's differences. You have to win. You have to have the personality. You have to have success. This is Kentucky. We don't have to take chances on guys like this. We don't have to take these chances right here. We are Kentucky. We don't need to. We have the money, the name. We have everything we need to go get the best coach in the country that's available, that's willing to leave wherever they're at. So, don't get in here, these guys, please. If you guys disagree, Put it in the comments. We'll talk about it. But I think you avoid all of these guys. And I didn't put Rick Pitino on the list, but we're avoiding him too. Again, Billy D or Jay Wright. Are you asking me, do I think either of those are an option or if I had to pick one? So I had to pick one. It's a toss-up. Billy Donovan's been out of college basketball for a while in the NBA, so he's missed the transfer and NIL era. But Jay Wright's been out of coaching, but he's at least been around college basketball. So I'm good with either. I nod Jay Wright if you're asking me to go head-to-head there. But honestly, I'm good with either of them. I don't know how good or how good of a chance you have with them, but I'm good with either. And Rick Barnes. No, thank you, old regular season Rick. Had the best team Tennessee's had in how long? And made the Final Four and got beat by Purdue. No, thank you. And first off, I don't want a Tennessee coach unless he's an absolute stud, and I don't think he is. I think he's a good coach. I don't think he has won anything ever, especially recently. So you tell me you get the best Tennessee team in the history of ever, and that's all you do? No, thank you. Is there a press conference? I'm sure there will be. Well, actually, I lied. There will be a press conference at Arkansas for sure. When Cal arrives in Fayetteville, there will be a press conference. He'll say the Cal-isms, excited to be here. This job's not for everybody, all that fun stuff. But as far as will Cal have a going away press conference, I really, really doubt it. You think he's going to sit in front of the media and be like answering questions and being like, oh, here's why I left? No, he's going to release a statement at some point, apparently tomorrow if the rumors are true. But no, I don't believe there will be a press conference. He'll release a statement saying, I've loved my time here. I think the best way Cal could go about doing this, release your statement. I love Kentucky. It's a great program, blah, blah, blah. But let the overall theme, because he put in his book that results like we have gotten are unacceptable. Like he said, they had 2 wins in 4 years, and that's unacceptable. And that's basically the exact situation we find ourselves in now. So in his farewell statement, I hope he says something like, I realize that my time at this program has come to an end. And not to mention, he did say that Kentucky has a 10-year shelf life for a coach, and he's here 1.5 times that, 150% of that. So I hope in his statement, he gives grace where grace is due. He says, I love the BBN. I enjoyed my time here. It was a great experience. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but I realized that my time has ran its course. I wanted to do what's best for not only me and my family, but for the program. And if he can do that, then again, I already think we're going to have a favorable outlook on Cal in 15 years. But I really think that would go a long way. That helps a ton if he does something like that. Let's see. Travis is Kentucky basketball. He is coming to Kentucky. I assume you're talking Travis Ford. Or no, probably. Okay, I know what you mean. Travis Perry. Yeah, I don't have a thing like a ticker at the bottom made up for this, but we can talk about the recruits. So like everybody knows, the day that Cal leaves, all of our recruits go. And I still believe that to be true until it doesn't happen. So I do expect most, obviously, Carter Knox has already decided. I don't expect anybody from this past team, by the way, to come back now. If any of them decide to return, they're probably going to Arkansas. So I don't expect Reed, or I thought DJ would come back. That's probably not happening anymore. Z, all of that stuff. I think they're all gone. And then, like I said, Billy Richmond and Carter Knox and all of those dudes, Sompto, they're probably all gone too. So just brace yourself for that. Reed is gone. JC Wilder, I see you in there. Reed's gone. Definitely now that Cal's gone. But Jaden Quaintance, there is rumors out there that he is at least open to still coming to Kentucky, which would be huge. Again, 5-star dude, 2-year guy because of age, has to stay in college 2 years, and was only partially, committed to Cal. his commitment was half Kentucky, half Cal, and now half of that's gone. He is supposed to sit down with him, his parents, and Mitch, and talk about what is the future of Kentucky basketball, what direction are we going in hiring a coach. And by the accounts, I mean, who knows how true any of this is, but by at least what's out there, he probably, if it's a good coach that he seems to like, then we may retain him. And then Travis Perry, I think, probably still comes here. Again, he has that Kentucky connection, Mr. Kentucky basketball. So he probably still ends up here. But I think, honestly, I don't expect him to be Reed Shepherd by any means, of course. I think he was going to struggle to get playing time anyway. But under a new coach, who knows? Maybe they'll need him. Maybe this coach. One thing I want to mention, too, we are going to lose a ton of guys. But let's look at the recruiting rankings. I think Kentucky had the number 2 class in the country behind Duke. Number 3 was Baylor. So if we get Scott Drew, we still have the number 3 class probably coming to us. And number 4 was Alabama and Nate Oates. So if we get Nate Oates, we probably have the number 4 recruiting class coming to us before the portal. So we're not losing. I mean, we're losing guys, but like the new coach will bring guys too. And at least 2 of the guys on the list have a pretty good recruiting class coming in. Let's take some more comments. What do we say? These things normally go about an hour, but big news, so we might go a little long tonight. All right, let's see. These delusional Kentucky fans are not getting Dan Hurley. Probably not. Like I said like a 40% chance we get him. I do think we can throw money. Maybe Hurley uses all this as just leverage. He pulls the old bait and switch on us. He gets us to offer him a ton of money, goes to UConn, says match it, they do, and he stays. Who knows? That's very likely. But I think it's also crazy to make this sort of statement and say that there's 0 chance, because there is a chance. I don't believe that there's a coach in the country that if Kentucky calls is not picking up the phone. That doesn't mean they all come. That doesn't mean Dan Hurley comes. But they're answering that phone call and thinking about it. I mean, it's Kentucky. It's not, like I said, UConn's a great program, probably the best program of the past 25 years. But it's not Kentucky, and it's not Duke, and it's not Carolina, and it's not Kansas. It's Kentucky. It's different. When Kentucky calls, you answer. That's just point blank. You answer the damn phone, and Dan Hurley's going to do the same. Whether he comes or not, I don't know. But there's a chance, and I refuse to believe anything else. Let's see. How many Kentucky fans are saying we're going to get Dan Hurley? I mean, that are realistically saying we're going to get Dan Hurley? Not a ton, but there's plenty of people wanting him and think it's possible. All of this depends on a good coach coming. Yeah, I mean, well, what does that mean? Because how much worse can it get, I could go lose to Oakland in the first round. Hire me. Like, if that's our standard, hire me. I'll go do that. And I'll do it for much less than $10 million. But Kentucky basketball, again, is bigger than any coach, any one person. It's been here for 100 years, and it'll be here for another 100. And we'll get back to Final Fours and all that stuff and championships eventually. Like, we had a bad hire in Billy, and then Cal came, and we were great. Like, it just happens. I do think it's important for the fan base buy-in, to make sure we get a good coach and make a big hire. But I do think, a lot of people can be at least moderately successful here. All those recruits are going to decommit. Duh. Y'all complaining about the outdated Cal and want to hire a 70-year-old coach. Right. Thank you. Thank you. Stop talking about Rick Pitino. I don't care about winning the recruiting rankings. I want to win in March and meet the standard. Yeah, I was actually, that's probably going to be my next video. I guess after the coaching search. How do you win in college basketball? I no longer think it's one and done freshmen. I think it's important to have superstar freshmen, but it's not important to get 6 like we have coming in this year. It's gotten older. NIL is going to make it be older. So because of that, you don't have to have the best recruiting class in the world. Have a good core of 3 or 4 freshmen. Hit the transfer portal hard and create a culture of guys coming back. And then I think that's how you win. And Dan Hurley's came out and said as much. Let's see. They have to make a hire by the weekend to save next season. I mean, I don't know if they like have to before stuff falls apart, but I do think you will see something happen before next Monday. Like with the portal and all that stuff. The only caveat to that is if we don't see something that might lean your mind towards like Billy Donovan, because the Bulls are in the playoffs, they're in the playing game, and if they win that, then they have to wait again. So the longer this drags out, the more I kind of think that he's a possibility. But like I said, I don't think he's gonna be the guy, so I don't see it playing out that long. I think names and rumors. I don't think anybody has real info just yet. Not like solid info that leans one direction. You know what I mean? Like there's rumors and stuff out there. People are talking. But any name you hear right now is just kind of like a working theory. Like we don't know. Starting tomorrow, and probably through like Thursday or Friday, you'll really see stuff like narrow in, and guys, you'll stop hearing guys' names like Rick Pitino and Bruce Pearl. Like I think you'll start to see those types of names weeded out, and it's going to come down to 2 or 3 people probably. And I think all that happens by Friday, and a hire probably happens by the end of the weekend. And like I said, it happened at a bad time, but also a good time with the season being over and the portal just now about to get popping. Look at the obvious that people are overlooking. Who we bring in, who we get will bring his own roster. Yep, that's what we just talked about. That's true. Scroll to the bottom because there's a ton of comments. Okay. I think if Hurley says no, you go to Nate Oates. Yeah, and that's assuming, of course, Jay Wright and Brad Stevens and Billy Donovan all say no as well. If you're talking realistic candidates, I think Nate Oates is your guy. Kentucky has the money for his buyout. He's not telling you no. Like if Kentucky's like, I'll pay your $18 million, we'll pay you $6 million a year, come to Kentucky. He's going to be like, yes, sir. I'm Tuscaloosa who? Never heard of her. And he's coming. Let's see. Do you think Hurley would want to come to Kentucky considering the Duke ties? I think it is all just a matter of circumstance. So, I mean, maybe in his heart, he's like, man, if I could pick any school to coach in the world, it's Duke. But guess what? John Shire's at Duke, and Duke's not available and Kentucky is. And I would argue Kentucky's a better program than Duke and a better job than Duke. So it has a bigger fan base, more money, boosters. I mean, all of it. Like Kentucky's a better program than Duke. Now Duke's probably number 2, maybe 3, if however you want to rank them. But they're all in the top 3 with Kansas. But yeah, maybe in his heart he wants to go to Duke. But like he ain't passing up Kentucky. Like these dudes are coaches. They're not fans like we are. I'm sure he loves Duke. But these dudes aren't fans like we're fans. Like I wouldn't coach. Actually, I lied. I would probably coach Duke, but like for the money, I wouldn't be good at it. But you paid me that money, I'll coach. I'll coach anywhere you want me to coach. But anyway, my point being is that I do think he might want to coach Duke, and that's fine. But Kentucky's available now, and it's all about timing, and the timing's good. Especially one thing I do want to ask. Let me know what you guys think. Is it better? Is Kentucky's chances better at Dan Hurley if he wins or loses tonight? Because I've heard arguments on both sides today. On one hand, it's easy to walk out on top. Like you win 2 back-to-back, you ride off into the sunset, you say, UConn, thank you, but I'm going to Lexington. But on the other hand, it's hard to leave after you just won back-to-back titles. Like that'd be a hard thing to do. You're winning, you're successful, and then you have to go start somewhere new would also be hard. So I'm kind of torn on who I want to win tonight. Do I want UConn to win and hope he rides here into the sunset? Or do I hope Purdue wins and he's like, time to change? So let me know what you guys think, because I do think that's an interesting psychology experiment here. JB says, it doesn't matter. His family is from New York. It's a dream job for him and his family. Yeah, I mean, it probably is. Like I said, he's a Northeast dude. He fits that culture with his arrogance and his personality and all that stuff. And like I said, I think his ultimate dream is to like bring the Knicks back. But I don't know. I do think it's possible. I would give it more than a 0% chance. That's for sure. Winning back-to-back is very difficult to leave. He will be a king and already is. That's a fact. He is a king there. But imagine, he even said, like, what they're doing is unprecedented. And he had an interview where he's like, if this were Duke or Kentucky or Kansas, this would be the headlining story on all of them. So, like, he acknowledges that UConn is not the same level as the rest of us. Like, he realizes that that is a different level of program that Kentucky is. And I think we're all really underestimating, like, these dudes and how much on top of the world they want to be. Like, these dudes want to rule everything. They don't want to just be good at one school. They don't want to just win at UConn. They want to, like I said, they don't want to be, king of their own castle. They want to run the entire country. Like, I think everybody's really underplaying that. And then, of course, you throw in tripling his salary, and that doesn't hurt also. Kentucky is the exact same job that it was 10 years ago. That's a silly statement. Kentucky is the greatest college basketball program of all time. Absolutely. Exactly. Thank you, Mr. Joker 606. He does have a huge ego, and that is what drives these dudes to take jobs like Kentucky, no matter the risk. Like I said, all of these great coaches, even Nate Oates and, Bruce Pearl, all these dudes think that they could take on hell with a squirt gun. Like, they all believe that. So to think that any of these guys are scared of the spotlight is just crazy. Now, there's other reasons, of course, to stay where they are, but that's not one of them. Another out of left field, Joe Pasternak. Again, couldn't tell you where he's coaching. If he's not a household name by now, he's not the guy for Kentucky. According to CBS Sports, UK is the best college. Well, they are, yeah. I know what thing you're talking about where they gave everybody like a grade. There was like a number based on championships and wins and Final Fours and all that stuff. Kentucky is the best program. We just are. We have more sustained success over a longer period of time than anybody. UCLA was great for a decade or two. Duke was great under Coach K for 30 years, not even the full 30 years. So, I mean, we are the best program of all time. Anyone who says that there's a coach in the country that would not listen is a liar. Absolutely a liar. They're listening. Maybe they don't come, but they're picking up the damn phone when Mitch Barnhart calls them this week. You guys know my opinion on the assistant coaches. Every one of them. Fire them all. I mean, if the new guy can keep John Welch and Chuck Martin do it, they likely bring in their own guys because it's just the world we live in. But, outside of them, Chin Coleman, Bruiser Flint, see ya. Cal's being announced Arkansas tomorrow, according to Matt Jones, so he's gone, so I don't see him come back after this. Yeah, he's definitely not. If Matt, like I said, I've obviously been on here, so I don't know. If Matt said they're announcing him tomorrow, I trust that, and he's gone. So there's no sense in, keeping up with the conspiracy theories that we started out the show talking about. It was set for 2 p.m. Tuesday, but now Arkansas people saying it's being pushed back to Wednesday. Well, either way, it seems like a done deal. Is a chump and Nate Oates won't work for him. I think that's also a silly. Again, you guys are completely underestimating these dudes' egos. You think Nate Oates has a bigger ego than Calipari, and Calipari worked for him? Like, these dudes are good. It's Kentucky. You're talking about, no matter, you could be a fan of any school, Tennessee, Louisville, Duke. Anybody that hates Kentucky would still acknowledge that we are a top 3 job. Like, at the bare minimum, we're third. And we're probably first. Like, anybody acknowledges that, and you guys are completely dismissing that because you think they won't get it. Like, Mitch Barnhart will make it work. Mitch Barnhart's reputation is on the line. He's already just got kicked in the mouth by Cal when they sat down and had a whole interview saying how buddy they are just for Cal to go do this. Like, Mitch knows what's going on. He knows that the fans are pissed. You all are completely underplaying this. UNC has more Final Fours than Kentucky, but Kentucky has more Elite Eight and titles. Yeah, and wins by a bunch. Let's see. I'm so happy we get a new coach. Well, here, this live stream right here proves that this is a good separation. This is more people than it's ever been on one of my live streams. The channel has gained like 200 subscribers in the past 4 days. All because of this. My last video did well, and then this obviously helps. Like, the last 24 hours have been crazy too. Like, I've never had this many people on a live stream, and it's all because of this. This fan base is what makes this program, and this is going to inject life into the fan base. Everybody is going to be excited. We could hire one of you guys in the comments, one of you negative people. Where's the negative guy? We could hire him, and the fan base would be excited about it because it's new. Like, everybody was ready to move on anyway, I think. And this is going to give it to where Cal can be successful and we get new life. And that is what is so exciting. Like, Nate Oates is going to be a great hire because he's going to bring the energy. Same with, if you get Dan Hurley or Billy Donovan. Scott Drew is even good. Like, I'm downplaying Scott Drew, and maybe rightfully so. But, like, if he comes, we're all going to be excited about it. So that's what's fun about it. Let's see. So did we pay Cal the $33 million? No. If he goes to Arkansas, that $33 million is null and void. He does not get $33 million from us. He does not get it from Arkansas, aside from his contract, obviously. But no, Kentucky will not be out any dollar amount. So that opens us financially to, like I said, back the Brinks truck up in Connecticut and just have him get in the back and write a blank check. It's that easy. It's that easy. Kentucky has more rings. Justin, not Oates. Why not Oates? Like I said this earlier. I'm not against the whole no Nate Oates thing. Like, I was very much a no Nate Oates maybe 48 hours ago. So, but I've kind of changed my opinion on that. So tell me why you think that. Barnhart brought in a good coach to save football program, and I think we'll be okay with our basketball coach. Yeah, like I said, he'll probably make a good hire, but he doesn't have a great track record at hiring. So we'll see. This really couldn't have been better. Arkansas will be happy and we'll be happy. It's a good breath of fresh air plus a $0 buyout. Exactly. That is exactly. Here's the negative guy. Yeah. The negative. We could hire you as the coach, Zach, and we'd love you. We would love you for you and your flaws. I want to know, though, Zach, who are you a fan of? Because you haven't said it yet, and you're just in here bashing the Kentucky fans, so I want to know who you're a fan of. Bama trolls in here, scared? They probably are. Well, listen, there was also reports, that reminds me, there was also reports of UConn people, like, kind of knowing that Kentucky was coming after Hurley and being like, oh, here we go. So, like, Dan Hurley knows that the UConn's not on this level. UConn people know they're not on this level. Now, maybe that all doesn't matter and he stays. Like, that's probably what will happen. But not impossible. It's going to be nice to have a basketball and football coach who get along with one another. I don't know if that really matters, but it will be nice. Roll Tide. Roll Tide all the way into Lexington, Nate Oates. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, my goodness. Not on the day of the eclipse. Says he's a fan of Oakland. That's fine. There's like 3 of you, so might as well jump on here. Okay, anyway, we got more stuff to talk about. I got pretty far off topic there. Okay, as of today, here is who I believe have expressed their interest in Kentucky. Not necessarily Kentucky has expressed interest in them, but they want to be here, and they've expressed that to Kentucky. Like I said, Bruce Pearl has basically been auditioning for this job his entire life. Like, this is the job he's wanted. So he obviously wants to be here. All of these coaches have baggage. I don't like I talked about Bruce earlier. I don't think he fits the mold. I personally like him. I think we can all agree he's a good coach. I don't think he fits the Mitch Barnhart mold. That's really the only drawback with him. If he got hired, again, I don't think he's one of the dudes you get up and pump your fist about, but I think we all support it and we all like it. Will Wade seems to be like a consensus, like, great hire by everybody, minus the cheating scandal, and there are sanctions against him in the SEC. So if he comes in his first year in the SEC, assuming it was like this year, there's a ton of sanctions on him, like official visits and scholarships and recruiting, and there's a lot of stuff he can't do. And so that would be the drawback to Will Wade. But again, once all those are lifted, I guarantee he gets a big job. Like, that's a name that everybody wants, and they're just kind of waiting to see when they can get him without all this stuff going on. Obviously, I don't, because of that though, and because of the time, like, timing is everything. Because of the timing of all this, I don't think it happens. If this happened in a year or two, maybe you consider Will Wade, because all he did was pay people before it was legal, and now it's legal, so why punish him? But because of the timing of everything, I don't think he can be a real candidate, although he has expressed interest. And had he not screwed up at LSU, there's a chance he's our coach. And then Chris Beard. Again, all three of these dudes are good coaches. You can't tell me Chris Beard is a bad coach. Maybe you could tell me he's a bad person, but he has apparently expressed interest. There was a rumor that he turned down the Arkansas job because he heard about Calipari coming and knew he wasn't going to get it, and he was just wanting to come to Kentucky. So I don't know. But they have all at least expressed interest in coming to Kentucky. How much of that is going to be reciprocated is probably none, to be honest, on those three dudes. But honestly, out of my names to avoid, I take all three of these dudes over any of the names going through right now. Tommy Lloyd, Otzelberger, and Underwood and Pope. I take any of Pearl, Beard, and Wade above any of these three, but not necessarily above my five that I actually would consider. Let's see. Yes, Beard would love to leave Ole Miss. It's a terrible program. It is, but he had him relevant to start the year. Tommy Lloyd from Arizona. I talked about it earlier, but he is on my no-fly zone. He's on my no-fly zone. I know, let's see, you would take Tommy Lloyd. Like, again, I don't think any of the guys that I said I would not take, these guys here, are bad coaches. I think they're all probably really good coaches, but they're not Kentucky good. If we get to this tier of coaches, we're not holding ourselves to a high enough standard. We have to get coaches that we know succeed. Like, we're the best program. I keep saying this. We're the best program in the country. Every coach is going to listen to us. Not every coach is going to come, but they're all going to listen. So go down your list, and if you get below Scott Drew and Bruce Pearl, you've screwed up, because somebody should have said yes before then, and if not, it's on you. And Mitch Barnhart knows that, and that's why I don't think we get that far. Honestly, in my opinion, I think we get to Nate Oates, maybe. It depends on how Mitch views Nate Oates and Scott Drew. I think without a doubt, he knows Dan Hurley and Billy Donovan are 1 and 2, along with Jay Wright and Brad Stevens. So I think Mitch knows that. But let's just pretend you can get none of those, which is possible. Then it just comes down to, well, who does Mitch rank higher? Does he take his buddy Scott Drew, who's been at the top of the list for a few years, but maybe Mitch knows that that's not the exciting hire the fan base wants? Or does he put Nate Oates there, who probably doesn't agree with Mitch on a ton and has a brash personality, but would make a big splash and has had recent success? I don't know. That's a Mitch Barnhart question, and that's kind of one of those things you don't know until you know. But in my opinion, you have your top four that may be pie in the sky dream candidates that you have no chance at, with Hurley and Donovan and Stevens and Wright. Maybe those guys just aren't coming, and you try anyway, but maybe you swing and miss. Then it has to be Nate Oates, in my opinion, and then Scott Drew, and then Bruce Pearl. I think even if you get to Bruce Pearl, you screwed up, because I think Nate Oates definitely takes it. And if Scott Drew tells you no also after turning down Louisville and whoever else, that's a bad look. But what I really don't want to happen is, Scott Drew just to be the only phone call Mitch makes. If he does that, then he has royally not only screwed himself, the fans, but the program. I don't think Mitch will do that. I think he'll at least conduct a big search, a legitimate, number one team or number one school in the country type of search. I do think that'll happen, but it would be awful to hire Scott Drew, and then it comes out that was really the only phone call you made. I think as fast as we ran Cal out, I think Barnhart would be ran out fast. I mean, there's people on Twitter saying that if Scott Drew's hired, we riot. I mean, he's just not that. I mean, if you can prove that you went through the other 5 guys and they all told you no or couldn't happen for some reason, and then you hire Scott Drew, I think you're fine. But you have to be able to prove that those 5 dudes said no first. And that's a bad spot to be in if he ends up getting hired and you can't prove that. See right here, Scott Drew is a pass. Let's see, this guy, where are you at in Kentucky, bro? I'm in Lexington. I have lived a lot of places in Kentucky. Not really, just a few. I'm originally from northern Kentucky, in the Walton Dry Ridge area. I went to Grant County, grew up in Verona. So from northern Kentucky area, went to school at Eastern, where if you follow the channel, you know is where I started at here on YouTube. In Richmond, and then recently I have moved to Georgetown, which is where you see me now. So I am not too far from you. But anyway, like I said, Scott Drew does not excite the fan base. Scott Drew is a pass. Scott Drew is a huge no for me. Thank you. I'm glad you guys finally agree with me and get off this Rick Pitino junk. I agree. I do want Jay Wright as well. I'm with you on that. I don't know how realistic it is. Probably the least realistic out of most of them besides Brad Stevens. If he calls Scott Drew passes, he will 100% ruin the other coach's chance because you called Drew first. I don't know about that. Like I said, worst case scenario, I think if everything goes sideways, Bruce Pearl is crawling here. So, like, at the worst, I think you're getting Bruce Pearl, which isn't a terrible hire. It's just not great. So, Josh Bright grew up in Henry County. One of the guys that's always on here grew up in Henry County. That's funny. I wonder if y'all know each other. Let's see. Bruce is a cheap hire and will be introduced on Friday. Sorry. Nah. Mitch knows he can't just go cheap here. Mitch knows that. They just saved $33 million. You can't go cheap. And I think Mitch knows that. I don't think that's going to happen. Oh, that's something I forgot to talk about. Good call, YouTube user. Bruce Pearl does have an exit strategy. They talked about it on Sources Say last night. It's like a 2 to 3 year strategy, and then his son becomes the coach at Auburn. Now, that 2 to 3 year thing might get extended should he come to Kentucky, and that's fine. But I don't think Mitch is going to be like, yes, we'll make your son coach in waiting. I think he got burned with the coach in waiting once, and that's just flat out not going to happen again. Mitch knows he kind of hamstrung himself with the lifetime contract with Cal, and he ain't going to do anything else of the sorts with a coach's son. Kentucky needs someone who is bigger than a basketball coach. Yeah, I mean, they got to have a personality. They have to. I mean, like, that's why I think Dan Hurley's so good. While I don't think his personality necessarily matches Kentucky, it's a personality, and he's going to tell you we're going to go win and we're going to kick your ass. By the way, thought this was I've had this hat here on the channel before, but I thought if I was ever going to wear it again, tonight was kind of the night. Get some energy back in the fan base. So imagine if Dan Hurley came out to the press conference wearing this hat. That's what I'm talking about. That's the personality we need. It's going to be a UConn coach. I hope so. Again, y'all never really told me. Do you think it's better if UConn wins tonight or loses tonight? Like, which one helps our odds more? I'm leaning win, oddly enough. And I know that might be the unpopular pick, but I just think, like, you win back-to-back. Like, what more can you do? But then you have, like, well, could I three-peat? Like, that would be cool. Or what if I three-peated a different school? But I don't know. I do think ego plays a big part in this, and moving from UConn to Kentucky is a big jump, and I think that's something he would consider. I don't care Carter Knox is a good player, but the coach is going to bring good players, whoever it is, so I'm not worried about Carter Knox necessarily, especially if we can get Quaintance back. If we get Jaden Quaintance still, then I'm excited. What if we get Pat Kelsey? I'm worried about that. I don't think you have to worry about that, my guy. I don't think he's on the would consider list for Mitch Barnhart. I'm going to, let's see. I'm just going to skip here and we'll go to comments till the end. Okay. Bruce would be great. Oh, my goodness. You guys are blowing this up. I can't keep up. Okay. I think Hurley uses Kentucky for a raise and we end up with Donovan. Okay. Like, fine. I'll take that. I would love that. I wouldn't love that we got used, but if you're telling me I end up with Billy Donovan because of it, sure. I think if you ask me, you got Dan Hurley's your 1A, Billy Donovan is your 1B, and then you drop to 3 at Nate Oates. I think there's a drop off between those two and Nate Oates. But if you're telling me I still end up with Billy Donovan, I am A-okay with that. DJ Wagner is 100% gone. Jaden's the lead. Man, I try to click on one. There's just too many coming in. He would be the only one I want. Yeah, like I said, I mean, Travis Perry probably still comes and some other guys. Everybody else probably leaves. But if we can get Jaden and Travis Perry, bring in the coaches guys, and then transfer portal, 100% in. Oh, you said a Pat Kelsey, not the Pat Kelsey. Okay. I mean, there's been a little bit of rumor about like Sean Miller, Xavier, which is basically Pat Kelsey. And I don't know, that doesn't get me excited, even with the goofy jokes and the corniness of Pat Kelsey. So I don't know. New coach's first priority, Reed Shepherd. Yeah, should be, probably will be, but I don't see it. Boogie Fland is gone. But yeah, let's be honest. If the new coach somehow convinces Reed to come back, it don't matter if you hire a Lamp to go coach. If that Lamp got Reed Shepherd back, we'd all be excited about it. Billy Don and Jay Wright would be great, but we don't get players with them. That's true. They don't have a recruit coming in to their program next year, but I think they'll be fine. If there's any two dudes I trust to come in and start a program up with no recruits committed to them, I think it's those two guys. Imagine we get Greg McDermott. I'm okay if Boogie Flanley. Look, whether we're okay with it or not, it's happening. So, let's just go ahead and get familiar with that. All right. Real quick, we're going to take a break here. Subscribe to the channel. I will be right back in 30 seconds. Okay. Thank you all for staying on, even though about 10 of y'all left, I noticed. But anyway, like I said, we're getting ready to wrap this up here. We went almost an hour and a half. I appreciate all of you guys being on here. It's not over just yet, so don't leave. But I do want to say thank you guys for being on here. Like I mentioned, definitely the biggest live stream we've done here, and for good reason. You know, a lot's going on right now. But be sure, if you're not already, or if you're new here, to subscribe to the channel, please. The button is right below. It's very easy to do. You can do it while still watching. It's great. Go ahead. Give it a shot. I promise you it's not that hard. I said my goal was 1,500 before football season starts, but we gained like 300 this week. So let's up that goal to 2,000. Let's get to 2,000 subscribers. I can't assume that all 300 people that have been on this are watching, not to mention all the people that's going to watch after this is posted. So make sure you go ahead and subscribe. Subscribe to the channel. Let's get to that 2,000 mark before football season. That would be great. Now, anyway, back to some comments. Some people are saying Marquette's coach would be a total dud. Shaka Smart. I like Shaka. Again, if we get to that level, dude, what are we doing? If we get to the level of Shaka Smart and TJ Otzelberger and Tommy Lloyd, what are we doing? We've screwed it up. We really have just made a mess of this thing, because there's better coaches out there that will say yes, and that just means you didn't offer them, and that's a mistake in my opinion. You said the worst thing for you would be Pearl. Good podcast, never seen before. Will subscribe. Are you Buddy on Twitter? If so, we've talked before. I am not Big Blue Bud. I do follow Big Blue Bud, but I do like his stuff, but no, I am not him. Sorry to let you down. I do appreciate the subscription, though. Thank you. Thank you. Buzz Williams. That's a name that I haven't seen yet. That would be interesting. He's a good, if you want to be on the bubble every year and then make a run, he's your guy. You suck all season. You're on the bubble. You maybe squeak into the tournament. You win a game that you're not supposed to win, and then you lose. That's Buzz Williams in a nutshell. So, no, I don't think he's considered. He's not in the top 20 probably for the job. But it is an interesting name. We do have to get the best coach. It would be a huge disappointment. Shaka Smart, Drew, and Pearl and Miller would all be a disappointment. Yeah, to some extent. Like I said, I think Shaka's a disappointment. Scott Drew, I don't think I keep saying I don't like him. He's not a disappointment. He's just not a wow hire like you would want. You know what I mean? And then Bruce Pearl, we've talked about too much tonight, probably. And then Sean Miller is definitely a disappointment. Yeah, you need to get Don Staley. Hey, she's winning championships and we're losing in the first round. So whatever works, man. I'm good with it. If she came in here and got us to a Final Four, why not? Let's see. UK fans want Hurley or Oates. Anything else will be a failure. I don't think Billy Donovan, Jay Wright, or Brad Stevens is a failure. I don't think Scott Drew is necessarily a failure. Bruce Pearl's not a – listen, at the end of the day, there's 58 coaches in the past 4 seasons that have won more tournament games than us. Any of them can come in here and be more successful than where they are now. The potential is there. So to say that our next coach is going to be an absolute failure, I don't believe. Even if it's not the first 10 years of Cal, it's not going to be a failure. This place just has too much opportunity to succeed. So I just don't think it's a failure. I don't think you can hire a failure here unless you just really go off the wall and screw it up like, someone random. But overall, I do think whoever we get is going to win games. Like, we're Kentucky. It's what we do. We have 5 coaches that have won a championship. We've had none of our coaches really have been a complete letdown. Billy G even had good games and won SEC Coach of the Year. So we haven't had a complete failure. Sutton was really good until the cheating stuff. He's a Hall of Famer. So from Rupp on, we haven't had an awful coach. So I don't believe that someone's going to come in here and just crap the bed and just be a complete disaster. Go Cats. Go Cats. Haley, tell me who you think is going to win or who you think is going to be the coach. Let's see. Stop it with the Rick Pitino stuff. Gosh, oh, Lord, oh. I've seen enough Rick Pitino tonight to go the rest of my life and not ever see his name again. We're not hiring him, and I don't want to hire him. Donovan's already turned the UK job down twice because third time is the charm. That's why. Scotch tea. Third time's the charm. You never heard that? Come on. It's happening. Let's see. Are you hearing any names that's not really been mentioned? Honestly, no. Like I said, the people that I've said tonight are kind of the names that's been floated around. Now, how much of that is fans wanting it and how much of it is coming from UK, I don't know. Like I said, I think everything right now is shut up. Get out of here, Rick Pitino. Y'all are funny. Y'all are funny. You guys are going to drive me nuts with that crap. Anyway, no, I don't think there's a dark horse candidate that we haven't really heard yet. But I do think everything you're hearing right now is just kind of speculation. I don't think any real names are being thrown out there, at least not till after tonight. But after tonight, I think things pick up and be subscribed so you don't miss out on any of it. I'm sure we'll have, depending on how things go, we might have a video out this week. At the very worst, we'll have one out next week. But it just really kind of depends, It depends on how fast stuff moves and the kind of direction of everything. But at the very least, the community tab here is always popping with updates and news and stuff. And then over on Twitter at Wildcat Cave BBN, plenty of stuff there as well. Bring Tubby back, Rajon Rondo. Rondo wouldn't get the head coach. There was rumors of him coming and being the grad assistant like Ulis was. There's some hangups with him. He has an AAU team that he's affiliated with, and there's conflict of interest stuff there that has to get worked out. So I don't hate Rondo. Obviously a really smart guy, but probably not going to be the head coach. What is the goal for next season? That's a good question. I think the goal all depends on the hire. If you hire somebody bad, I think the goal goes up, oddly enough. And if you hire a Dan Hurley, then, if he struggles in his first year, well, it's Dan Hurley. We've seen him do it. So, oddly enough, I think it's an inverse effect. The better the coach, the lower the goal, or at least the more grace you give them. Maybe not lower the goal. I've always said Elite 8 is my standard. That doesn't change with a new coach necessarily, but there is grace worked in there. And I think the better the coach, the more grace you give them. As to where if you take a chance on a hire and it doesn't work immediately, well, then you probably got to move off them fairly quick. Beat Cal in Rupp. Yes, something we haven't talked about tonight. Arkansas is scheduled to come to Rupp. What do you think the get-in price for that game is next year? Calipari's first game back in Rupp with his new team, and we have a new coach, and yeah, it's going to be crazy. I bet it's going to be a $300 ticket for the nosebleeds. Like, that's going to be a crazy game. If I can go, I'm 100% going. Like I said, it's going to be expensive to do, though. If Hurley wins tonight, he stays at UConn. If he loses, he might consider taking the job. See, I had the opposite take of that, but I could see that being the case too. But if you're right, I'm a Purdue fan, and I hate Purdue. I think they're a fraud. But on one hand, I don't want to see UConn win a sixth, but if it means we get Hurley, I'm good with it. But it also could mean that Hurley doesn't come, and then I don't know. I want whatever gets Dan Hurley to Lexington the fastest. I've seen people say Jack Golke. You're funny. Doug Eddard. Can we all laugh at that now? Like the past, like the early losses with St. Peter's and Oakland, are we allowed to laugh at that now that Cal's gone, or does it still hurt too much? Hurley wouldn't put up. He threatened to fight a fan. He threatened to fight a fan after a UConn game, and you think he can't handle this? You guys completely underestimate these dudes' ego. He would come here guns blazing and love it. Like, Kentucky is no crazier than anywhere else. We're just bigger. Like, these coaches, this is what they want. It might be crazy from our standpoint looking at it, but this is what these coaches want. They want this pressure. They want these fans. They want to – Dan Hurley doesn't walk in every night to 24,000 people at UConn. He just doesn't. It's different here. You guys so underestimate that. And again, I'm not saying that Dan Hurley, like all this is just so much that he doesn't come, but you guys are underplaying like what it means to be the coach of Kentucky. That is a pin. Like if you can say you coach Kentucky basketball, what you're saying is you have made it to the highest level of college basketball. You're one of the greatest coaches of all time if you've made it to Kentucky or Duke or Kansas as the head coach. It's just – or North Carolina. Like, that's just what it says. You guys completely underestimate that, I think, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the idiot. That's just my opinion. We can all laugh at the losing. Yeah, well, I guess we can now, right? It's in the past. We're moving on. New beginnings, greener pastures, all that stuff. Dan Hurley does live for pressure. And I think that, I mean, like I said, I gave it a 40% chance, which means more likely than not, he doesn't come here. But that's a good enough chance for me to get excited. If you're telling me Dan Hurley's 40% chance at the coach, let's go. Throw the bag at him, make him say no. Back the truck up. Let's see. What are you, 28? If you didn't listen earlier, like if you just tuned in, that's a great guess because yes, I am 28, but I did say it earlier. So maybe I'm skeptical of your guessing right there. I think you knew. Let's see. Jay Wright said no to Kentucky. He did say no publicly, but also Mick Cronin said no, and Mick Cronin would walk here from UCLA. Like, people say no publicly and then come take the job. Mitch being Mitch, it'll be Scott Drew, who he is friends with. Maybe, and he knows Scott Drew would fall in line. But again, Mitch also knows his legacy is on the line here. So I don't see him just copping out with Scott Drew. Now, maybe Scott Drew gets the job, but I think he's not the first. I hope he's not the first call. I don't think he will be. What would you do if Barnhart hired Coach K? I mean, if he hires, you just got to like him, right? Like, you just have to be like, oh, yeah, all that stuff I said was a joke, big nose. Like, you just have to like him at that point. It'd be quite the heel turn on Coach K, though. That would be an interesting dynamic. Let's see. They'll for sure say one thing and do another. All right, let's see. Someone give me a good comment. because it's getting real close to watch the national championship tonight, which I'm going to do, and watch our future coach. Going to watch our future coach beat Purdue, win UConn's 6th championship, and then immediately hop on a bus and come to Lexington. But all right, it looks like the comments are slowing down, guys. So that is going to do it for me. I'm going to get out of here. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I appreciate you guys watching. Again, a huge live stream. Dan Hurley, please come to Lexington. Make sure you're subscribed here on Twitter, TikTok, everywhere. You don't want to miss it. We're not hiring Matt Painter. We're not hiring Rick Pitino. And I will see you guys as the rest of this unfolds. Go whatever situation gets Dan Hurley here. I'll see you guys later. Go Cats. Cal, we love you. It was great. I'm glad you are our coach. Thank you for all the good years. But it's time to part ways. It's been great. We'll see you guys later. Go Cats.